It is no secret that Russia has emerged as the biggest supplier of crude oil to India. Since the Ukraine war broke, crude prices jumped. Many countries, including India, were looking for cheap oil. For Russia, India was a stable market. It was a win-win situation for both. But there is some trouble brewing now. In the latest edition of Energonomics, we discuss it. Traditionally, India has bought crude oil from West Asia. Right before the Ukraine war, the region accounted for 69% share of India's total crude oil imports. It fell to 44% in April this year. Last month, Bloomberg News reported that the daily volumes climbed to 2.2 million barrels a day in June. The report also said that Russian purchases exceeded the combined shipments of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. So, where is the trouble? The trouble is not in supply. The trouble in the near term will be in the payment mechanism. The most commonly used currency for crude purchase is dollar. Historically, Saudi Arabia and US reportedly reached an understanding to trade crude in dollar. Hence, crude is denominated in dollar per barrel. It was convenient for all, and the term petrodollar emerged. The countries agreed to price and trade oil in US dollars. Any country that purchased oil from Saudi Arabia would have to use dollars. But over the years, several geopolitical tensions and sanctions seem to have compelled buyers to have Plan B in case they want to continue sourcing from sanction-hit suppliers. Currently, Russia is under Western economic sanctions, and this has made payments for all transactions tough. China is using the yuan to trade with Russia. Countries that are buying Russian crude are looking at various options to make payments. This leads us to the question, is it time to explore other currencies for buying crude? A Reuters report said that India has used yuan to buy Russian oil. Till now, we didn't want to use the Chinese currency. Reportedly, the government had asked banks and traders to avoid using the yuan for Russian imports. I asked this to Swasti Rao.
This is somewhere a geopolitical backdrop to the fact that that dominance of the petrodollar, and you also see that a lot of countries from the Gulf. Okay, so a lot of these countries like Oman, UAE, Saudi Arabia, these countries have also been voicing the fact that they also need to sort of strengthen mechanisms that can go beyond the dollar payments, right? So that is the geopolitical context in which we talk about decline of the petrodollar. I think it's more than decline. In my personal opinion, it's more like opening up the energy market. So changing the financial flows of the energy market is how I would look at, and not really argue that there is a particular decline because data suggests otherwise.
Payment is a complicated issue for India. With Rupee Ruble payment mechanism not really taken off, what are the options available before the government?
For Russia, the oil trade becomes attractive only if it is giving currencies that it can use. Russia has agreed to selling oil to Pakistan only because Pakistan agreed to make payments in yuan. China trying to arm twist Russia, or China trying to pressurize Russia to make those payments in yuan, is also understandable because it then sort of adds up to the Chinese, so to say, stature. Now, I think that from the Indian side, I think there is understanding that as long as the bulk of the payments are not made in yuan, some fringe payments here and there, I think is a part of the deal somewhere, because everybody understands how the war in Russia has kind of pushed it further into the lap of China. The Rupee Ruble trade mechanism could not work out, and they said that no, you have to pay us in a currency that we can use. So we said that fine, you take rupees, and they said that what are we going to be doing with all those rupees? Exchange rate is not very clear, so we might land up giving more rupees than we ideally should be. That's one. But even if we are giving them rupees, then what are the Russians going to do with all those rupees unless and until they invest it back into India? And right now, the Russians can't do it because all their financial, so to say, effort is also somewhere centered around the war in Ukraine. India's discomfort with settling payments in yuan is very much there. The only thing, like I said, is that let's be wary when we sort of take these things into account at how many, I mean, exactly how many barrels of oils are were actually traded for in yuan.
India is buying Russian oil because it's economically viable. But the transactions are becoming a challenge. So, what is the plan B available? To ensure its energy security and to protect itself from geopolitical shocks, India needs to expand its energy basket and also work out a payment mechanism which doesn't interrupt the supply side. Some experts believe that it would need to work its strategy on a case to case basis. The current situation brings forth two questions. Should countries not directly involved with the war or sanctions be affected? And second, should energy policies be independent of geopolitical decisions? With these thoughts, I leave you till we meet again in the next episode of Energonomics.